one of Trump's favorite congressmen, tomorrow.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the program. I have some advice. Don't snap at a judge. Tonight on the show, there are several different judges in several different stories that have pretty interesting reactions. The first is the Vallow judge. And that judge is a saint. Like, we got to canonize this fella because this lady is nuts. And I say that with science. She was deemed incompetent to stand trial, and now she's defending herself. And anybody who defends themselves, in my books, is nuts. And I think a lot of people agree with me. Certainly, I think that judge might. Wait until you hear how often he has had to stop her and counsel her to behave, figure it out. I have a feeling things could come to a fiery end in this case because she's on trial for murder a fourth time. So it's not small. Anyway, got some stuff for you to see, plus another juror was bounced, and we're only at day 2. Yeah, that's a problem. And AI, it's cool. I'm not going to lie. And it's making its way into a lot of aspects of our lives, right? Should it be in a courtroom? Should it be your lawyer, especially if you're appealing to an appellate bench? Do you see the lady in the middle? And you see the guy down on the right bottom hand of the screen? That is not a real person. That is an AI guy named James. And the man who created him wanted that to be his lawyer. And the judge went ballistic. You're going to see it all. And then we're actually going to talk about AI in court. Like, can you? Should you? Are there rules? Do we know? It's a new area, and it is kind of bizarre. Then also, speaking of court, speaking of judges, the Menendez brothers have a really important hearing coming up in just days. And I know that you have probably seen untold media on free Eric and Lyle and the movement and the protests and the signs and all of that, right? And if you've watched the documentary Monsters, you probably feel they should be freed. There are a lot of reasons why they should be freed. And there are a lot of reasons why they shouldn't. So now comes TMZ with a fantastic documentary that lays out the case. And if you feel like you know, you need to watch this doc because the people closest to the case weigh in. And it is not in the tank for either side. I love this network because we are balanced. We tell you both sides of every story. And this doc tells you both sides of this case. Harvey Levin's going to join me on the show. I have a really good conversation with him about that. He knows because he's a lawyer, remember? I have no doubt that by the time the jury hands down a verdict in Lori Vallow's murder trial in Arizona, she's going to probably know her way around a cross-examination. But until then, it seems like the doomsday cult mom, who is acting as her own lawyer, will learn the rules of criminal procedure the hard way by being chewed out by a judge over and over and over again. She is making nonstop rookie mistakes and being smacked down by both prosecutors and the judge in front of the jury because you have to be if you're making these mistakes. Yesterday, on just day 1 of testimony, Vallow was hit with dozens of objections for violating the rules against hearsay. And look, I know we all talk about hearsay, but the technical definition behind it is a reference to something that somebody heard from someone else. And it's usually a really big no-no. In court, there are exceptions, yes. But navigating when it's an exception, you need a JD, a Juris Doctorate. You need a law degree. She doesn't have one. However, today she almost made it through the entire session without a single hearsay objection. That is, until the floodgates opened at the end of the day. And ladies and gentlemen, I give you Lori, the lawyer.
So were you there at the time when Alex did the walkthrough?
Yes, ma'am.
And so you were there. Did he describe where he was standing?
Object hearsay.
Sustained.
Did he show you physically where he was standing?
Object to hearsay.
Sustained.
Was there a wall right next to where he was standing?
I object to hearsay.
Sustained.
The matter asserted, he observed this person standing in that place.
Well, you can ask him if he observed Mr. Cox standing in that place.
Okay. Did you observe Mr. Cox standing in the room where he told you that the gun was?
I observed him standing in the vicinity that he indicated.
And was that in the hallway or in the main room?
No, I'm going to object to hearsay. It's non-testimonial,
Right.
but it is still hearsay.
Okay. Rest of the day wasn't so smooth either. Sadly for Lori, she found a new way to piss off the court. Multiple times the state raised objections because Lori was asking questions that were irrelevant, right? They were not relevant. That's something you're not supposed to do. And one particularly awkward exchange prompted the judge to call a sidebar.
Have you spoken to the media about this case?
I'm going to object. Relevance.
What's the relevance?
What is the relevance, Your Honor?
Yeah.
Just to know how many times he's given testimony?
Your Honor, I'm
Right.
going to, maybe we can
Hold on.
sidebar.
Yeah, I don't want to. All right, let's go on sidebar.
Yeah, that's never good. To Vallow's credit, I'll give her this. She takes most of the bumps in her very, very steep learning curve in stride. I said most, but not all. Because at one point today, she seemed to snap at the judge for trying to, move her along.
So do you think that your CPR class would be fairly successful if you had no visuals?
Objection, relevance, speculation.
Yeah. Next question.
I got it, Your Honor.
Yeah, I'm going to stop here and I'm going to bring in two people who have had to endure all of it, up close and personal. They've been following the courtroom action from actually inside the room. Lindsay Holler is the producer of my podcast, Drop Dead Serious, and Gigi McKelvey is the host of the podcast, Pretty Lies and Alibis. She's a longtime friend of the show. Ladies, thank you first for enduring what you endured today to cover the story. And then thank you for being on the show. All right. So I'm going to start with you, Gigi, if I can. The cross-examination when Lori, takes to the floor, I am going to invoke the kids' expression. It's cringe. I just want to crawl under a rock and wait for it to be over. And I'm watching it on a feed. You're in the room. Is it as bad or worse? And how's the jury taking it?
It's a little awkward, especially when she sort of switches to that flirtatious mindset with these witnesses, the little giggles, using the little girl voice. There have been a couple of jurors that seem very uncomfortable when this happens. And we've seen it a lot with Detective Coons, who was the last witness today. She didn't want him to testify as an expert witness, so I really thought she'd be hostile with him. But I guess she kind of switched over to kill him with kindness, giggle and say all these little things, after he speaks. In fact, the judge told her, you have to stop testifying. You're making comments after people give their testimony, and you can't do that. It is cringy at times. The jury definitely starting to pick up on it, as well as that little fiery exchange with all the objections today. Definitely took a day and a half for the real Lori to start coming out.
Yeah, I was kind of popping the popcorn yesterday, but really waiting for the butter today because, we kind of know what this lady's like. We saw her with Keith Morrison, right? And it was not pleasant. She's rude. She's not deferential to a guy like Keith, who I would be. He's the king of true crime. But that judge is on the bench for a reason. He is, I just say it, he's better than us. He's up there for a reason. And she doesn't seem to get that. So, Lindsay, jump in there with the whole notion of the eye rolling and the, head shaking yesterday. Did she at least put that in check today?
I think so, a little bit. It was more muted, definitely. But then towards the end, she brought it back. It was there. It was, with her objections, or she would stop and she would say, oh, well, I wouldn't think of that. Ha ha ha. And just, she continued her antics, but I think it was a little bit more muted, but towards the end, it was out full force.
The giggle part, I just cringe at that because I do think jurors see through somebody who behaves like a tough lawyer on cross in one moment and then giggles like a schoolgirl in another moment. Lori has always been described as manipulative, Gigi, that she gets what she wants and often uses her sexuality to do it. I'm just going to say it. She's got 5 husbands. Had. They're, I think, almost all dead now. I can't remember. Are all 5 dead, Gigi, now that I think of it?
No, the only 2 out of 5 are Joe Ryan, which is Tylee's biological dad, and then Charles Vallow. Her current husband, dead man walking. He's on death row, so it's coming maybe at some point. That's the one.
Yep. They jumped the gun on that one. He's on death row. So, right. Okay. So let me ask you this. When the jury is not in the room, does that aspect of Lori Vallow come out more, knowing that she can do what she wants at this point, she can flirt with anybody she wants in the courtroom, and the jury won't see it?
Not in a big way, Ashleigh. I mean, I saw more at these pretrial hearings as far as that fiery attitude, little defiant. But so far, and we're only on day 2, there hasn't been a lot of time where the jury's been out where we've had anything going on. So we really just haven't seen her in that capacity yet. But it is very interesting that switch today. It happened once she had 5 objections sustained, and the judge cracked me up, Ashleigh. He's waiting for that objection, and he kind of goes, sustained, move on. It's just like he knew what was coming every time, watching him kind of look up to the ceiling and tilt his head and sustained, and, having to tell her to stop testifying. She got flustered there at the end, and it started to be like a snowball effect. And I think the jury really was picking up on that because it was kind of a back and forth, watching the judge, watching her. They knew this was getting a little tense, a little frustrating for her. But as far as when the jury's not in the room, it's just not often that she's in there without them. I mean, they bring her in shortly before they bring the jury in. So there's just not a lot of time really. And she's typically talking to her advisory counsel or her investigator.
So, Linz, jump in here with something. In some jurisdictions, I've seen this. I always actually love it. Jurors are allowed to write questions and submit their questions to the judge, and the judge will actually ask them. I think it's great. Very few jurisdictions do it, but this is one that does do it. And some of the questions today were like medical in nature. Do we know if there's someone on the jury panel who knows a thing or two about medicine? Because that's going to make a difference as to what the fact pattern was in the death of Charles Vallow.
Well, you're right. It certainly seemed like it with some of the questions because they were very technical. And did you follow the ACLS procedure? Did you do this? Did you contact a physician? So it definitely seemed like someone who might have medical knowledge. But after the lunch break, it's actually kind of funny. A few of us noticed that, hey, this juror was actually on his phone in court in the jury box. And we don't know how, but I guess, other people must have seen it. And so the judge after lunch, he said, hey, I was actually advised that one of the jurors was on their phone right before they put some questions in, because there's a little box where the jury can put paper in as the testimony goes. And so, it kind of was like, well, man, do you have a medical background or did you just Google that? And, he said he wasn't. He was texting his daughter. I didn't even know you could have your phone in the jury box in general. So it was definitely shocking to see. Are
they literally allowed to have their phones in the jury box and have them out?
Yes. Yesterday there was someone's phone was vibrating and it was next to a microphone. So during the middle of a testimony, everyone's looking around like, what's going on? Like, because you can hear it. And then the judge has said, hey, juror so-and-so, you might want to grab your phone. I think that was the buzzing. So it's something I've ever seen before. And I think it's crazy.
Yeah, I have not seen that before either. And that's definitely something, I'm not crazy about that. I'm not going to lie. Hey, Lindsay Holler, Gigi McKelvey, thank you both for the observations. I'm going to call you back. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ashleigh.
It's one thing to watch all of this from a distance and like roll our eyes and just, cringe. But what is it like to have to preside over someone like Lori? I'd have to ask a judge about that. And thank God for Judge Ashleigh Wilcott. She's a TV anchor on Court TV. She was formerly a trial attorney and also juvenile court judge in Georgia. And I'm a huge fan. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Oh, likewise. Thank you, Ashleigh. Appreciate it.
Okay, Judge Wilcott, I'm going to put you to work here. Put your judge's hat on and imagine what it's like to preside in this trial. What kind of patience does it require, and when does that patience run out, and when should it?
Well, this judge is amazing. I agree with something you said earlier, which is he's a saint because he has handled it beautifully. And I'm going to admit this, as much as any pro se defendant might drive a judge crazy, the reality is a lot of attorneys can drive a judge crazy. Think about it. If you've watched trials, sometimes attorneys are really unbearable. And so this isn't that different. It's just a different set of issues that a judge has to manage.
Is there a point, though, Judge Wilcott, where this judge will have to stop her and protect her from herself? Meaning, if you continue with these objections, these admonishments, these stop and starts, it will affect how the jury sees her, and it will eventually be a problem for her defense. When is that, and how do you decide that?
Yeah, what a great question. It's really a fine line because you have to give a little bit of latitude and grace to a pro se defendant. Anyone has the right to represent themselves. Is it a good idea? Absolutely not. Is it allowed under our United States Constitution? It is. But you also want to protect the record. You don't want to give her all these appellate issues that she can raise and win on, right? Because if there's a conviction, then you want it airtight. And so the reality is you're going to let her get away with some things that you may not let an attorney get away with, but it just ensures that she does everything she wants to within the rule of law, to present the evidence, to have every shot she can so you do not have to deal with an appeal.
So our producer, God bless him, long-suffering, had to count the number of times Lori actually uttered, "The evidence will show," in her opening, and it was 68 times. We saw the number of times there was an objection over hearsay. I lost count after several dozen. She actually said to herself, "Oh, that's not a good question," in the middle of asking it. She's been admonished for irrelevant questions regularly. And then she snapped at the judge. It seemed like she snapped at the judge. "I got it, Your Honor." At some point, could she be held in contempt for this?
Sure. So first of all, I think that no judge would put up with an attorney saying, "I got it, Judge." A judge is going to rein you right in and say, "No, lawyer, you know better in a courtroom. You don't treat the judge like that. Regardless of what you think of the judge, you respect the position." And I think that she got her chance to act that way. I think if she does it again, or Ashleigh tries to do it more than once, I think that's when the judge will likely have a sidebar, so it's not in the presence of the jury, so it's not indicating a bias against her, to rein her in and say, "You can't behave like that. There's courtroom decorum. There's courtroom etiquette. I expect you to adhere to that, just like I expect the prosecutors to adhere to that. If you can't do it, this is your warning," right? You can't just as a judge say, "You're in contempt because you suck." You can't do that. Instead, you have to say, "These are the things you're not allowed to do in my courtroom. If you continue to do it, you will be facing possible contempt. Here are the results of that possible contempt," and then the judge can do it. So I think he'll do it outside the presence of the jury initially if he feels like he has to do it. But if she pushes a judge too far, eventually it's going to bite her in the butt. And who knows what the jury's thinking of her as they're getting distracted by the evidence will show, the evidence will show. They probably didn't even hear what she said the evidence will show.
And we always hear it, you know, these trials can be won or lost in openings. There is a reason I'm a huge fan of yours, Judge Ashleigh Wilcott. Thank you for coming on. Do it again, please.
Yes, please. But you're amazing. Thank you for having me.
Oh, I want to just preserve that clip. We'll see you again soon, Ashleigh. Thanks for this.
Take care.
Great name, by the way, too.
Thank you.
All right, so coming up. So Karen Reed's family may have reached a breaking point because her father has taken to the mic about what these trials are doing to the family members. And then also a little later on in the program, a New York judge goes full New York on a plaintiff who was just testing out a little AI in the courtroom.
Shut that off.
Yeah, shut that off. And she had a whole lot more to say, too. What on earth was so wrong with AI James? See her whole rant and meet the man who was at the center of it all just ahead.
Thanks for listening to NewsNation on the Go. I'm Chris Cuomo. This is America's fastest growing cable news network, delivering fact-based, unbiased news from all sides.
I have been checking almost hour to hour because I am fixated, but there's still no word from the highest court in the land on Karen Read's petition to stop what is going on in her courtroom in Massachusetts. So, jury selection is trudging ahead. I will get to why the highest court is involved, but let me talk about today. It was day 6, and it was relatively productive. We finally have 6 men and 6 women, 12 jurors total, picked from a total of 382 candidates. But there are still alternates that they need to pick, and they need 4 of them. And once they get all of these jurors, the whole dang thing is going to start all over again after last year's mistrial. And again, the question will be, did Karen Read kill her police officer boyfriend with her car in January of 2022? Her first jury deadlocked. And you probably know about her legions of supporters who show up at the courthouse every day. But one of her biggest supporters has been pretty quiet, and that is her dad. Until this comment on the long road ahead and what it feels like as Karen's dad to go through it all over again.
Mr. Read, your daughter seems to play an active role in the jury selection process. Do you know what she's doing when she's sitting up there?
She's a bright woman, and she knows she's innocent, and she's fighting for her freedom. And again, she's a bright woman. We love her dearly, and so she has a good way of reading people. She's been through hell, as you understand.
Does she have a good feeling about the jurors? Does she go on feeling sometimes about who she wants?
And you know, she's got all of the legal people behind her, students at BC, Northeastern, and Harvard, who are in their final years and well trained and good on the research and know how to just, you know, it's all perception at this point. It's instinct, to be honest.
How does it feel to go through this again as a family?
It's hell. It's hell. It truly is. My family's, we've lost 3 years of our lives at a time in my life that, you know, in golfing terms, I'm on the back 9. Some would say I can see the clubhouse. So, you know, I feel something has been taken from my family. But of course, for Karen, that's where, you know, most of the suffering has been. But without these lawyers who have sacrificed so much, Alan Jackson, Liza Little would not be traveling from L.A. on my dime, because my dimes are limited. They're here because they believe in the cause. And so this is much bigger than a paycheck. This is all about the American way, justice, truth, and fairness. Let me go get my wife, okay?
Look, no matter how you feel about Karen Read, you've got to imagine what it's like to be family members. They're not guilty of anything. They didn't do anything. And of course they support their loved ones, right? It is really, really hard to be a family member of someone who's going through this. Just as a reminder, Karen Read is charged with second-degree murder and manslaughter and leaving the scene of a deadly accident. Her Supreme Court appeal, remember I mentioned that at the top? That rests on the fact that after her mistrial, some of the jurors in that last case revealed that they had unanimously found her not guilty of both murder and leaving the scene. But they were deadlocked on the one remaining charge. And in appealing to the United States Supreme Court, her lawyer said that trying her again on those 2 counts would amount to double jeopardy. And as you know, and I know, and everybody in that court knows, that is unconstitutional. But prosecutors say a verdict is not a verdict until it is announced out loud on the record in court, which it wasn't. And the lower courts have agreed. But stay tuned for the Supremes to weigh in on that. Coming up, if it feels like AI is everywhere these days, we are definitely getting there. One day we're using it to make funny pictures and write emails, and the next day we are riding in self-driving cars. But arguing in front of real judges in a very real courtroom, that, my friends, that is still off limits.
If you want to have oral argument time, you may stand up and give it to me.
Yeah,
she's 5 minutes.
Yeah, she's making a case in point here. Hear the rest of her rant. And it was big. And it was New Yorkie, seriously. And then meet the poor guy who was in the line of fire, because that guy is live, in person, next.
You're listening to Banfield on NewsNation's audio stream. Available 24/7 on the NewsNation app, or just say, Alexa, play NewsNation.
Nobody has to tell me that public speaking is a tough gig. There is a reason that it's at the top of the list of worst fears for a lot of people. So big props to Jerome DeWald, a guy who's embroiled in a civil lawsuit who wanted to represent himself in court, even though public speaking is not his strong suit. So he turned to AI, artificial intelligence, to generate an avatar to speak for him. And anywhere else, like a classroom or a boardroom, that might have gotten you kudos for creativity. But not in a New York courtroom, especially a New York appellate court. I want to play for you a bit of his ill-fated hearing and pay special attention to the judge in the middle, and then the handsome guy on the monitor who's located in the lower right-hand side of your screen. Take it away.
May it please the court. I come here today a humble pro se before a panel of 5 distinguished justices.
Is this, hold on. Is that counsel for the case?
I generated that.
I'm sorry?
I generated that. That is not a real person.
Okay, it would have been nice to know that when you made your application. You did not tell me that, sir. I received the application. And you have appeared before this court and been able to testify verbally in the past. You are not going to use this courtroom as a launch for your business, sir. So if you are able to shut that off. If you want to have oral argument time, you may stand up and give it to me.
If it's any consolation, some real lawyers have also gotten in trouble for using AI in court. In 2023, 2 New York lawyers were fined for citing non-existent cases that AI had simply made up. Same thing happened to Donald Trump's longtime lawyer and fixer Michael Cohen. Cohen had to beg a federal judge for mercy, saying that he had no idea that AI would make up cases, make up lies. I am happy to say that my next guest is speaking for himself tonight, completely unaided by any cutting-edge technology except for Zoom. Jerome DeWald, the guy who was the subject of that judge's ire. Welcome to the program. It's really good to meet you. First of all, I said props to you, but I really shouldn't have, because I've always counseled our audience, never represent yourself in court. I know it's something you've done before. Why did you decide to use an AI-generated avatar to speak for you?
Well, there's a couple of reasons. I had throat cancer 25 years ago, and so my throat tends to give out over a period of time. A conversation is one thing, but talking for a long time, I start hacking and coughing, and it's difficult. Articulation is kind of difficult also. And then there's the pressure and the intimidation that a pro se feels in the courtroom by himself.
I think that they gave you, 5 minutes, right? 5 minutes for your argument?
That's right. I got advance approval for to use the video. I had intended to use a replica of myself, an avatar of myself. But I had some technical difficulties getting it completed. It was the first time I ever tried it. It's a very, very new technology. And I couldn't get it completed by the time of the hearing, so I had to go with James, who you see there is much more handsome than I am.
Yes, James came off very handsome and debonair for the 5 seconds that the judge allowed it to play. But then, man, she went off on you. Did you expect to have that reaction from that appellate judge?
No. I did kind of expect that the panel would be surprised, but I didn't really expect quite so vehement a reaction.
And has it cost you in any way? Like, did they admonish you, or did your case suffer in any way because of this?
Well, it's a little early to say. I don't think so. I trust that the panel would not be influenced by this too much. I noticed that the presiding justice, who was the one who shut the TV off, later when I was giving the argument, she acted as though she was maybe felt she had been a little bit harsh with me. She was being a little, she was being encouraging to me, she would say. And I did send in a letter of apology. And I did, I got this all approved in advance. So, so far, everything seems to be all right.
Sort of weird that she was the one who said, I was the one who approved this, and I don't know about this, and you should have told me, almost as though maybe she hadn't read through the whole submission, or it's such new science that she didn't really understand what was coming. I am sort of curious, you said you wanted to avatar yourself, so it would have been you speaking words that you had written, like you'd literally written the brief and you would have had yourself as the avatar speaking eloquently and perfectly without ums, ahs, and the difficulties that you've had with throat cancer, and you would have made it all within the 5 minutes. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. If you watch through the rest of the video, you'll see I followed the script pretty closely, but I did stumble over some things, and I didn't get to the ending. She said at the end, it's the end of your time. You can come back on rebuttal and finish it.
Can I just ask, she said, I'm not going to let you use this courtroom to launch your business. This isn't your business, is it? I mean, it seems to me you used a service to do the avatar. Was she mistaken?
Yeah, it's an innocent mistake, I think, but I'm not really promoting a business at all.
I didn't think so. Well, listen, she should apologize to you, I think, for that, but I'm not sure you get that out of an appellate judge. Keep us posted on how the case goes, Jerome. I really appreciate you talking to me tonight. Thanks for this.
We'll know something in about 4 weeks.
Okay, well, we'll keep an eye. And I also learned something, so I was really enjoying doing the research on this case. And congratulations to you. I mean, you're way ahead of the game. I appreciate you bringing it to the show. Thanks, Jerome.
Thank you.
Is it ever? And terrifying all at the same time. Jerome DeWald joining us now. I will keep you posted on his case. Coming up next, with all the hype around Eric and Lyle Menendez and the shot they have at getting out of prison, it's hard to see any reason why they shouldn't be released. But a new TMZ doc just dropped that lays out a balanced argument, both for and against letting the Menendez brothers walk free. And it comes from people who were there, the cops, the reporters, the fellow inmates, and the family.
I think that the Menendezes are very capable of shape-shifting and being who people want them to be.
I'd say my neighbor's 17-year-old Labrador Retriever is more dangerous to society than Lyle and Eric Menendez.
With just days until a very important hearing, I talked with Harvey Levin about the mood and the odds that these two brothers could actually prevail. That's next.
Tomorrow, only on NewsNation. Cuomo.
Our seats have been adjusted so that I strangely look taller than he does.
O'Reilly.
The true things can be true at the same time.
America's favorite sparring duo with TV's liveliest, most honest debate.
Number one, you're a cheap frump.
Bill O'Reilly on Cuomo.
And number two, I'm much better dressed than him. So that
you just have a tie on.
True.
Tomorrow at 8, 7 Central.
You have a tie on that goes with nothing else.
Only on NewsNation.
There's no question it's become a bit fashionable to grab a sign and join the Menendez movement, that is, free Eric and Lyle. Ever since the Monsters documentary dropped on Netflix, more and more people have changed their tune about those brothers. And even though Eric and Lyle freely admit to shooting their parents in cold blood, there's a groundswell of people who believe they should be freed after 35 years behind bars. But a new doc just released by TMZ digs a whole lot deeper and features people who were there. The cops, the reporters, the fellow inmates, the family, people who alternately describe them as either angels or devils, just days away from a critical hearing about their freedom.
They're completely different men, as would be expected.
They've lost a little bit of that arrogance that they had as kids being raised with money. They are very humble human beings.
If they're released, do you think they pose a danger to society?
Yeah, I don't know, but I think there's a risk. I do not know. Do you want to have them over for a dinner party at your house, Harvey?
The doc is called The Menendez Brothers, The Prison Interview, and it just dropped yesterday. And today, I talked about it with my old friend and TMZ executive producer, Harvey Levin. Harvey, I feel like we're getting down to the wire for some kind of decision-making in the Menendez case. So this documentary really couldn't come out at a better time.
Yeah, Friday, there's going to be a dogfight in court. The resentencing hearing goes down then, and the new DA has said he is not only opposing resentencing, he wants to yank the petition to resentence them, which the old DA submitted. I think they're going to have a hearing, but actually, honestly, it doesn't matter, because even if the judge changes the sentence, say he changes it to just life in prison and takes away without parole, the only thing that would happen is it would go to the parole board. But it's already at the parole board because the governor of California, Gavin Newsom, has sent it there and asked the parole board to review the case. So resentencing, to me, is irrelevant. The only thing that would make a difference, I know that their lawyer, Mark Garagos, is not only going to ask resentencing, he's going to ask the judge to change the conviction from murder to manslaughter. Now, if he gets that, and personally, I just don't see that happening, but if he gets that, they get out instantly because they've served more than 3 times the max for manslaughter. So that's his end goal. But short of that, I don't think resentencing matters at all because Newsom now has the case.
The former inmate who spent 18 years, he said, I spent 18 years with the Menendez brothers. It was probably the bulk of that with one brother and then the rest of it when the two were reunited. Right. But he had some very strong opinions having lived with them and having been paroled mostly because the Menendez brothers helped him to prepare for his parole hearings, as they did other inmates, without any notion that they'd ever get parole themselves, which was a very interesting concept. Talk to me a little bit about that rapper who's now out and his feelings about the brothers.
He loves them. He loves the Menendez brothers and says, and I think you just nailed it, Ashleigh, that, when they helped this guy, this rapper, who is now out and prospering, they had no hope of ever getting out. That only emerged a year and a half ago or so. They had no hope of getting out. And they didn't just help him. They helped a lot of inmates. They spent a lot of time with inmates trying to rehabilitate them. But in addition, they started a hospice program. They started a suicide prevention program. They started a green space program. They got advanced college degrees, and they did all of this knowing at the time they were never going to see freedom again. And so that, to me, says something big that, these guys, look, Ashleigh, I covered this case. The trials. And back then, I thought they were spoiled brats. They were monsters. And the sentence seemed appropriate. The conversation I had with them recently that you hear in this documentary, I'm talking to 2 different people. They are thoughtful, they're introspective, they're remorseful, and they're evolved. And I can be fooled, but I don't think I'm being fooled. And when you listen to the rapper who was with him for 18 years, he reinforces all of that. And look, every living family member wants them out as well. So my opinion is these guys have really been rehabilitated, and they are deserving of that second chance, knowing how horrendous their crime was.
Well, the doc is great, and I really recommend people watch it because it is a balanced approach to this story, and it gives you, perspectives from people who were there, people involved, people with a direct stake and with direct knowledge, which I'm always a big fan of. Great job. I really liked it. Thanks so much, Harvey.
I really appreciate that, Ashleigh. Thank you. Thank you.
TMZ's doc is called The Menendez Brothers, The Prison Interview, and it is streaming now on Hulu. Still to come, a police chase like nothing you've ever seen. Not a speeding car, not a fugitive on foot. It was a canine causing all the chaos. So if you had to pick a name for this runaway pup, what do you suppose would make the most sense? The answer and why this dog is so much more than just a runaway. Next.
Thanks for listening to NewsNation on the Go. I'm Elizabeth Vargas. We're here for you 24/7 on the NewsNation app or on your Alexa. Just say, play NewsNation.
We have seen our share of police chases on this show. Foot chases, car chases, even stolen ambulance chases. As I recall, we had one of those. And they all seem to have one thing in common. The ones being chased always lose. Until now. Last week, a pit bull mix took off down a South Florida interstate during rush hour. She led the highway patrol on a furious game of cat and mouse. And if that fits here, I'm not sure, but it's adorable. It forced the shutdown of a major interchange and maybe set a record for the best case of the zoomies ever. So how did the troopers finally catch this dog? Not with treats, and certainly not with sweet talk, but with the oldest trick in the book. An open car door, believe it or not. Once safe, this little perp was taken to the local Humane Society, where workers discovered that she was likely running from much more than just police. She has a C-section, a bunch of scars from C-sections, from being forced to breed for profit. In fact, 2 separate breeders called to get her back when news of her adventure got out, but they were rejected, both of them. Instead, the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office adopted her, giving her a new life and a brand new name. Are you ready? It's Taylor Swift, because she is a pup star and she is Swift. And she's not just their pet or their mascot either. She is enrolled in the Paws and Stripes program to be a therapy animal. So while I still don't recommend leading police on a high-speed chase at rush hour, sometimes getting caught actually has its perks. Way to go, Taylor Swift. Cutie patootie. Thanks, everybody, for watching. Great to have you with us tonight.